This happened on my last day of high school. I was in my final year, so after today, it would be the end of high school for me. Of course, I was very happy and felt a huge relief. But there was also sadness in the air for me. That day, because the true meaning was that I had to leave all my friends and had to find new ones in college. I tried not to look at it negatively because in the end, that's just how it is, and it's just a part of life. You know, things change. I don't exactly remember why or what happened, but my mood was very bad that day because of things that happened at home with my family. I think it was 5th period, which was biology class. I didn't actually mind the class itself, but the teacher who taught it was terrible. Mr. Johnson was a jerk to me and many other kids in my class. Frankly, I don't know how he wasn't fired earlier. He was notoriously mean, interfering with kids, and involved in shouting matches. One time, he even broke a kid's phone, and another time, he legitimately threatened me in front of the whole class. I thought he wasn't working there anymore as a teacher, but I really didn't want to go to his class that day, so I skipped it. I went to the library, and my plan was to stay quiet until the 6th period. I hid behind the library in the computer section and pretended like I was doing my homework, but I was actually playing games on my phone the whole time. Not long after, suddenly the school intercom sounded, saying we were having a lockdown. Even though I admit it made me worried, I thought it was just a drill, and our school often tested us. Our school did at least 2 drills every semester, so I took it with a grain of salt and decided to wait it out. But suddenly I heard screams from the auditorium. They were really loud, muffled, and I couldn't make out what was being said. All I could hear was screaming that seemed to last for a few minutes. I soon began to realize that we might actually be in a lockdown situation. I panicked and thought the best option was to hide somewhere in the library, so I hid under the computer desk. It wasn't the best place, I know, but I thought it was better than nothing at all. I stayed quiet and waited for the PA system to come back on and say that the drill was over, but it never happened. It must have been about 20 minutes, and I was just lying there in fear. At one point, I took out my phone and saw that I had about 20 messages from some classmates from biology asking where I was and that we were indeed in a lockdown. That's when my heart sank into my stomach and I started feeling sick, telling them all that I was safe and that I hid in the library as far as I knew. No one else was in the library with me because there were no teachers or kids when I first entered. This was actually very unusual, but it made me even more scared, so I was quite alone. I kept waiting with the hope that everything would soon be over. Well, that was just the beginning. I didn't know what I was actually doing by skipping. A few minutes passed, and the screams resumed again, and then not long after, I heard someone running past the auditorium. My worst fear became real. The library door opened, and someone walked in with fear. I managed to peek up to see if I could see who it was, but all I could see was the dark silhouette of someone who seemed to be around my height. I hid under the table, and that's when I saw a flashlight turn on. Whoever it was started searching around. All I could remember was praying to God to make me invisible. Okay, finally the person headed towards the cubicle where I was, near all the computers. I knew it would only take a few seconds before he saw me, so I jumped out from under the table again and made myself visible. "Hey, hold on. I'm about to direct the flashlight towards me," I said along with Tyler's pistol. "What are you doing, buddy?" I asked. Tyler was one of my close friends in high school, but we hadn't kept up much since starting high school. Over the years, we had some kind of falling out and drifted apart, but I urged him to put his gun down, and after nearly a full minute of singing to him, he started crying and fell to the floor. I kicked away his pistol and reassured him that everything would be okay, and I told him that we needed to do the right thing, and that was he needed to surrender if he truly wanted a chance to get better. Surprisingly, he actually listened to me, and I walked with him to the office until he found a teacher, and the teacher then took us to the police. I recounted everything I knew as a witness, and Tyler complied 100%. All right, I'm glad Tyler found me, not someone else. I was the only friend Tyler had in his eyes, and if he found someone else, I'm sure he would have killed them, honestly. We really need to raise awareness about this, to do things like this, and do whatever we can as a society to limit violence and school shootings, especially as much as I dislike Tyler for what he did. He was a bullied and abused kid all his life and had terrible experiences at home and various mental illnesses, I'm sure. So it's really not surprising if you think about what he was trying to do. That's usually what happens. It's deafening and terrifying that some people are capable of doing things like this. And at least that. But we really need to do our best to prevent it from happening. It was just a regular day at school. I think I was sitting in class 10. I want to say this was right after the third period. And besides, it was lunchtime, so my friends and I were fooling around as usual. We'd all eat, maybe for about 5 minutes, and spend the remaining 20 minutes playing games and messing around. Around halfway through lunch, the PA system suddenly blared, and we were put into an emergency lockdown, which was quite scary. It was an emergency alert. Please follow lockdown procedures. Enter the nearest room or building, lock the doors, and turn off all lights because usually, if it was just a drill, the principal would announce it, or at least warn us beforehand, so we knew there would be a lockdown coming soon. I remember Mr. Harrison's voice quite clearly, a little panicked as he announced the lockdown, and my friends thought it was part of his act to make it seem real, but I had a bad feeling about it. Now, this was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, and I still honestly don't know why we did it. But after they cut the power to the school, my friends thought it would be funny to sneak out from the cafeteria through the side door leading to the upstairs to one of the main hallways of our school. I decided to tag along with them just because I wasn't so sure I should have just done it. After walking around for a bit, we all split up. And at this point, it was just me and Andrew or 3 other friends wandering alone to somewhere in that hallway. It was so dark that we could barely even see what was in front of us. The only light source we had was from the sunlight shining through the windows, but the weather was quite overcast, so the outside didn't have much light. Then, out of nowhere, we heard 3 consecutive gunshots followed by Andrew's scream. And I naturally started to freak out, so he ran out and ran as fast as we could. I was relieved we were close to the main entrance of the school because I preferred being outside than hiding in the bathroom or something. But now we were in front of the school, and we knew we were waiting for teachers or the police to find us. We didn't want to get into trouble for sneaking out when we shouldn't have, so we ran to the back of the school and straight into the forest. We had to run across the football field to get there, but we managed to cross without it being seen. Then we heard police sirens getting closer. I knew they were there for whoever had just fired the gun. But we were still paranoid that the school or the police were looking for us to escape as well. I had a friend who got into trouble for skipping before, and I was really anxious about everything happening in general, like any normal person would be. It was a pretty serious situation, so we panicked for a while, and we tried to calm each other down. We also didn't want the police or anyone to think we had any connection to the armed crazy person, while the police weren't looking for us, and they really didn't know we were missing. Neither did anyone else at the school, but we pushed our luck by continuing to hide because eventually, the police found us when they were doing a mandatory sweep around the area. The police eventually found us, and when they found us, they let us go until they caught the actual suspect they were looking for. It turned out the person who fired the shots was someone who went to a very different school, and he was just a year younger than me. No one was hurt, fortunately, but the kid said he came to specifically kill a girl, but he failed in something weird. I want to add very quickly how similar this kid and I looked. We both had the same height, hair color, and the same hairstyle, and we dressed very similarly that day. The police quickly figured out that it had nothing to do with me, though, after we explained everything I learned that day for sure. I'm still in junior high school. I had to make an emergency trip to the bathroom. My stomach was really hurting. There must have been some kind of stomach bug as I ran through the hallway trying to get to the bathroom just in time. I heard whistling coming from across the hallway. Thank goodness as I got closer to the bathroom, I realized who was whistling. It was in the bathroom. I didn't think much of it, except it was a bit uncomfortable for me because I wanted the bathroom to myself since I really needed to use the toilet. I rushed to this stall and did my business uncomfortably the whole time, all the while the man who I hardly ever saw. Maybe I would just live in the bathroom. I must have been in there for about 10 minutes by now, and no one knew how long he would be in there before. I started thinking it might be the school janitor, but I really wanted him to go for obvious reasons. I wanted privacy the whole time he whistled and hummed while I was in the midst of doing the disgusting number 2. I knew, but that's what happened after I finished in the stall. I came out to wash my hands very quickly, trying not to make eye contact with the man in the bathroom with me because I was kind of embarrassed. I also had to hurry back to class, because if I stayed out too long, I'd likely get into some trouble. Then what happened next made me angry. The janitor, the custodian, then started walking towards me, and he stopped after being no more than 1 foot away from me. He was so close that I could feel him breathing towards me. I felt a tingling sensation at the back of my neck, and I was so uncomfortable because I had no choice but to look at him. What can I say? He had a stone-cold expression on his face. And shortly after that, he gave me a smile that looked so unsettling that I would never forget that I was at home. On the way back to class, and I was confused. The only thing that crossed my mind was that the guy was crazy. I texted my friend about it when I returned to class, and she told me how she had a similar situation with the guy, the same janitor. She told me she knew he was a creep too, so she planned to talk to the principal about him that day. But we never followed through. After school, me and the same friend were just talking about Elias, and one of our other close friends, Peyton, all decided to walk home after school, which was something we often did. Usually we would go to the nearest restaurant or fast food chain or even the park. We do all kinds of things after school, and usually it's the most fun we've ever had today. We decided to go to this restaurant that we all love. We had to walk through the path that starts from the schoolyard and opens back up to the nearby neighborhood to get to this restaurant. Well, we didn't have to take that path, but it was definitely a quicker and much more enjoyable route. So the 90 days we walked after school, we would take the trail. Elias and I started talking about that creepy janitor, and Peyton started doing it. Come along, he knows the janitors we're talking about, but he's never had any experience with them if you tell Peyton how scary that guy is, and he starts to understand. I'm not kidding. Although it's like we're talking about it, the janitor spawned it there or something, not literally, but it was so ironic and strange in the distance. We noticed that there was a guy in front. No way, Peyton said, bro. Isn't he the janitor from the school we all stood in? Scared and confused looking at it until we all can do it. Came out that it was him for 100 certainties. Hey, let's turn around. Peyton said I didn't even say anything. I just kept moving forward like Elias did when we walked past him. He then stopped and looked at us, but we kept walking to the janitor, then shouted for us and asked if you guys wanted to hang out okay. So this guy is not only the janitor at his school and is supposed to be an authority figure, but he's also a complete asshole. He also has to be at least 55 years old. Why does he want to hang out with a bunch of kids our age as we just ignored him? And we increased our speed a bit, but he then started running towards us, and it was at this point we started running full speed, He then started screaming at us, and when I looked back, I saw that he had a knife in one of his hands. We all screaming for help and running for at least 5 minutes, and shortly after that we seemed to lose him. We then found out who he really was the next day at school. Me, Elias, and Peyton, and all of us parents went to the school and reported the situation to the police. The principal turns out this school doesn't know who this man is, and he is not the school janitor. He is a man pretending to be a janitor. I don't know how he got away with this, like getting inside the school and so on, without being detected for so long is quite ridiculous and scary. In my opinion, they really need to improve security because schools should be a safe place for children to learn. It turns out that this man is a convicted sex offender too, and that he has committed abuse against children underage for many years now. He also had a court order where he had to keep a certain distance from the kids, but that didn't stop him. I personally think he'll take it a step further this time and try to kill one of us. Some people are so messed up. In my head, I can't even begin to understand it.